dado la bienvenida a las nuevas sedes europeas de las incubadoras de empresas de la Agencia Espacial Europea. Contribuimos así a tener prosperidad, cohesionar y fortalecer nuestra posición en el sector aeroespacial, como digo, desde todos los territorios y regiones de nuestro país. También, en colaboración con nuestro país vecino, Portugal, estamos creando la constelación atlántica de satélites, centrada en monitorizar el cambio climático y las emergencias como sistema que colabore y complemente al Copérnicus. Y en acuerdo con Estados Unidos, nos hemos adherido al programa Artemis, que hará que nuestro país colabore para hacer posible la presencia humana continua en la superficie lunar y los primeros vuelos tripulados a Marte. De igual modo, estamos contribuyendo a la primera misión geoestacionaria de distribución de claves cuánticas, con la que estamos capacitando a España para ser uno de los países líderes en la futura constelación europea de comunicaciones seguras por satélite, la llamada IRIS². Y por último, y no menos relevante para nuestro país, porque además la tenemos por aquí abajo sentada, tenemos dos nuevos astronautas españoles en la promoción que la Agencia Espacial Europea sacó el año pasado. Esto es un hito que nos lleva a 30 años. Hacía 30 años que España no conseguía astronautas. Lo hemos hecho con Pablo Álvarez y con Sara García. Y además, Sara García es la primera mujer astronauta de España y un referente ya femenino para las niñas que sueñan en nuestro país con llegar a la Luna y con eso con conseguir cualquier cosa en la vida. Voy finalizando. Un dato. En 2013 había cerca de 1.000 satélites orbitando alrededor de la Tierra. Hoy hay más de 10.000. Hemos multiplicado en 10 años por 10. Y la cifra aumenta de semana en semana. Aunque pase desapercibido, muchos de los productos y servicios que nos facilitan la vida diario proceden del espacio. Cada día nos relacionamos, cada uno de nosotros, con más de 200 satélites. Cuando consultamos la previsión meteorológica, cuando le pedimos indicaciones para llegar a algún lugar a nuestro móvil, estamos, por tanto, ante un sector en expansión y un ámbito de progreso y prosperidad. El sector espacial español es una industria estratégica de futuro que contribuirá a transformar nuestra economía y a crear mejores oportunidades laborales. Y les quiero brindar otro dato, que es un dato del ámbito laboral. Desde el año 2020, en nuestro país, en España, 1 de cada 4 nuevos empleos se están generando precisamente en el sector de la ciencia y de la innovación. Y eso es un cambio total de paradigma en el mercado laboral de nuestro país. Hemos pasado de expulsar a nuestro talento a reclutarlo. Los necesitamos más que nunca. Así que estamos, por tanto, ante un reto apasionante. Preparados, bien posicionados como país y en condiciones inmejorables para encarar el futuro. Y, desde luego, con los mejores socios, nuestros compañeros de viaje, que es la Unión Europea. Gracias a la Comisión por haber celebrado su Space Week aquí, haciendo coincidir con esta reunión informal de ministros y ministras del espacio que hemos tenido por ostentar la presidencia del Consejo de la Unión Europea. Y gracias también a la agencia, a la ESA, por su compromiso también con nuestro país y por haber traído también la reunión interministerial de la ESA. Les deseo que a partir de hoy tengan también una fructífera semana y disfruten de la Space Week que hemos preparado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Minister. I'm sure that everybody in this room couldn't be more proud to be part of this space ecosystem. Let me now invite on stage Timo Pesonen, Director General for Defence Industry of Space of the European Commission.
Dear Mrs. Minister, dear Joseph, in the beginning when the logo was shown that we are organizing this European Commission, JUSPA, and the Spanish presidency, I was about to shout, ESA is also here with us, because you are contributing a lot with your personal commitment and many of your colleagues together with us on these events. I have, of course, the always not that easy job to replace the honorable member of the European Commission, Thierry Breton, who would have liked to be here, but tomorrow, European Commission, the College of Commissioners, will discuss on enlargement. I cannot reveal because I don't know the outcome of that discussion, but on the agenda is the possible recommendations by the Commission to open the accession negotiation with some countries in the Balkans and in our eastern neighborhood. So very important and naturally force majeure for Commissioner to be there and not here. It's a really honor for me to open this week. 1,000 people, 2,000 online. It's a huge number. And I asked my colleagues that who are these people? And he told me that they are better experts on space than you are, dear Timo. So I feel humbled to speak to this distinguished audience. We had a very extensive 2 days here in Sevilla. The Spanish EU presidency hosted the EU ministerial meeting, and ESA, together with the ESA Director General, together with the German presidency of ESA and the EU presidency of Spain. So we had back-to-back meetings at ESA ministerial, EU and ESA together. And of course, this sounds boring, but it's very important that we do these things together, and we have brought the European space family under the one roof. I mean, our space sector is undergoing a massive transformation, and we are facing very turbulent times. Most of you in this room remember 9/11, when the Al-Qaeda terrorist cowards attacked New York, Washington, and the United States of America. We all remember 24th of February, when Putin tried to occupy Kiev, take over the whole country, an independent, sovereign European country, which led to this ongoing war, which still goes on. Naturally, it has immediately drastic implications for our space operations also. Day after, we spoke with Joseph because we were relying on Soyuz launchers for our Galileo satellites, there were hundreds of thousands of Russian engineers in Kourou already preparing the next launch of the satellite, but then the war made it impossible to continue this cooperation, and that's why we have been having painful times since that to speed up the development and the conclusion of the European launcher Ariane 6. But we will get there. We will definitely get there. President Ursula von der Leyen, when she started already 4 years ago, time flies, she came with 3 priorities. She wanted European Union and Europe to become more green, more digital, and more resilient. And space is an enabler of all these 3 top priorities. You saw the images of Copernicus upstairs in the lobby, which are amazing. By far the best and unique Earth observation system and constellation what we are running. If you watch CNN News, you watch the weather, there is always a sign, meteo information provided by the European Copernicus Earth observation, which is of course only the surface of all what Copernicus is doing. With the minister, we look at the images of the wildfires, the forest fires in Spain, and how precisely Copernicus can help our firefighters and our authorities to mitigate the damages under these circumstances. On the resilience side, this morning, Commissioner Breton passed a message to all the ministers in our meetings that to maintain the leadership of Europe in the field of space, we must rethink our resilience, our technological non-dependence, and our business models. On the resilience of the space value chains, the Commission proposal for a Critical Raw Materials Act has listed space-critical minerals, such as titanium or bismuth. It is imperative that we guarantee access to these raw materials to our space sector. Just one example, but very telling. In addition, the European Commission teams, people working with us, are currently monitoring value chains of dual-use space and defense technologies. This will provide us with valuable knowledge to identify and address our vulnerabilities, such as for space and propulsion technologies. We also need to strengthen the resilience of our space infrastructures. 2 examples. We are working on developing a governmental Earth observation service, which not only will provide high-resolution imagery, but will also be protected accordingly. This is utmost importance. And with IRIS², where we aim to establish the most secure satellite communication constellation for governmental uses. Our proposal for a platform on strategic technologies for Europe, STEP, together with the EU's economic security strategy, would complement our space, defense, and research and innovation programs and serve as a precursor towards greater ambitions. The EU space program has made great strides, delivering services that support our ambitions for the green and digital transition. But we need to go further. We need to consolidate and evolve our space assets to stay at the technological forefront, to push the boundaries of innovation in space, and to respond to the needs and challenges. In satellite navigation, we need to deploy Galileo's second-generation satellites, equipped with the state-of-art technologies. We need to ensure the Galileo public regulated service is delivering secure and reliable positioning, navigation and timing information to governmental users. This service is a cornerstone of our security and resilience. And in Earth observation, Copernicus is under transformation. Commissioner Breton announced Copernicus 2.0 in Toulouse in our previous space summit when we were there together with Joseph. Copernicus needs to be adapted.
Fostering better communication services, and this is really to enable everyone to create business models, to help and continue developing our startups, our SMEs, our established players to incorporate more and more space data, space services into their solutions to their particular user problems. Then the second field that I see in growth, and I think Timo already pointed into that direction, certainly European governments and the European institutional actors have also growing needs in terms of EU space services. When we look, for example, to Galileo, we are in a very, very important phase of the public regulated service. This will be a game changer. This will be a game changer for governments, for governmental authorized users to have Galileo in their hands with a signal that is more reliable, that is more secure. And this will be a starting point. And from this starting point, we are already working today in bringing a GovSatcom service. We will certainly be working together with the Commission on the development of also secured communication capabilities through the IRIS² program, also for governmental authorized users, those users that need a particular security element. Certainly as well, if we are called by the Commission, by the legislators in the end, we will be ready to contribute to Earth observation governmental service. Because we see, again, this domain of the use of the governmental use of services equally as very important. My last word to say, and I think this is very, very important to be said, is that by any means one excludes the other, and they coexist. The same way that in Galileo today coexists the open service, coexists as well the search, which is available worldwide and is providing services worldwide, coexists as well the search and rescue service saving lives every day, coexists with the PRS. and they function in the same system. Certainly when we look to the other systems, the other components, I think it is very important to pass the message that in our view, in my view, for use, but those services will coexist. We will have services for the general public, we will have services for market segments, and we will have secured services for governmental users.
Okay, thanks Rodrigo for this vision from the user needs perspective. So I think we heard quite first inspiring words from our leaders. So we understood from Timo the resilience as a need, but also as an opportunity to grow with our also leaders in Europe in some of the areas, the ambition of Spain and the role of the private sector that you see. The ambition to be leader also in the space economy that was mentioned by Joseph, and the perspective from the user needs. So a complex set of user needs that are evolving and that we will need to satisfy also in the future. So based on this vision that you shared with us, and thank you again, I would like to ask first to Timo, if you have to name one key ingredient to make Europe successful in 2035, what would be this in your view? We talk about cooperation, we talk about, let's say, key areas of excellence, our entrepreneurs. What would be the most important factor for success?
I think in 2035 we are in a situation when Spain is a reigning football world champion. It had beaten Belgium in the 2034 final 2-0. So I would say competitiveness, clearly. I think the competitiveness is the key for our success. I think I know that we here all agree to that with Joseph and Miguel and Rodrigo, and that was very much the message from the ministers also yesterday and today, and they recognized the need that, and if we want to compete, you want to win. And often when I say it, I mean that we need to be the number one in the world. It's not enough that we are number 2 or 3. Who wants to football final to lose? Nobody. And nobody remembers even the silver or not to mention the bronze medalists. So winner takes it all. So that's also in our space and defense domain in our industry. So we have to be the world class, number 1, solutions and technological skills. And that's why we also have to invest on our education and keep the high level of research and innovation, education and postgraduate studies in Europe so that we can really be there. And we are there. There is no reason to be like an underdog compared to any other world power, US, our friend, or China, not to mention. In Europe, we have the top-class universities and technological universities across the continent. So I'm sure that if we pull together our resources, even better than we have done so far, and we find better ways to support our industry and our startups and SMEs. And as Rodrigo rightly said, established companies too. I mean, this is not like a naive speak about, okay, let's only support, the startups and SMEs and then wait that something happens. Of course, in parallel, we continue supporting our primes and our flagships, because that's the way we can compete, and we will be the number 1 in the world by 2035.
Okay, thanks, Timo. That's a challenge for our ecosystem. So we want to be the number 1. We have to be the number 1. So the competitiveness is key ingredient for success in the future. So Miguel, from your point of view, what would be this secret ingredient or the factor of success, if you see it from the point of view of Spain?
If we have to select only one ingredient factor to be successful in our ambition, I would say human talent. At the end of the day, all this is about people. And if we want to grow at the rate that we want, we need professionals for that. In fact, today, human resources is the bottleneck of the growth of our companies. And this is for sure. We need to promote vocation in STEM, and we need to promote space careers. Otherwise, we will never get our strategic goals. That's quite important. Being for us this the most important factor. There are other 3 small factors that will be important. I mean, one of them is, I said before, the involvement of the private sector. We need to be able to get financing for our space company as easy as it is in the United States. And that's something that we have to go. I mean, it's not only because our billionaire has not the same appetite for space like in the US. It is basically what we see, at least in Spain, is that there is a lack of expertise to determine the risk of space projects. There are some financial organizations, they cannot assess it. Then as they cannot assess, they don't risk because they don't know how big is this risk. Then from the Spanish Space Agency, we would like to be the bridge between startups and space company and financing organizations so that we can help them assessing this risk, and that gives confidence, even co-invest, so that financial organization will get easy into the companies. Second point is we need to change the industry. We need to have the capability to change from a handmade craft industry to a chain production. I mean, the space industry in the future may be more similar to the automotive, to what the space is today. And this needs a transformation of the industry. And the last one, more than a factor, is a conditio sine qua non. If we want to achieve our space aspiration, we must be able to solve the very serious problem of overpopulation of space. We need to set up, as soon as possible, an efficient space traffic management system, in the same way as we have an air traffic management system for the aviation. I mean, this is something which is more than a factor, it is an imperative condition if we want to reach our ambition.
Thanks, Miguel. I think you gave us 4 ingredients, so we can make a paella already with them. But the main one, the rice, is the human capital, the people, I understand. So, Joseph, from your point of view, the key ingredients or the secret one?
No, I can fully support, of course, what Timo was saying and Miguel was saying. These are all ingredients to succeed in 2035. But I have one word which drives our activities in ESA in particular, and I think should drive the whole of Europe, which is ambition. Europe needs ambition. And I see in this group of people, I met quite a few of my colleagues and friends in working in the Copernicus domain and the value-adding services domain. If there's ambition to develop the best service, to deliver the best data, to establish the best program, either Copernicus, Galileo, or Earth exploration system, or rockets, or whatever it is, I think Europe needs more ambition compared to what we have today. And I think this is something that distinguishes us a bit from, I would say, the US, but also maybe China or some other countries, but there's a very clear ambition using space as an element to drive the economy, to unite people, to stimulate, inspire the young generation and give them new dreams and new hopes. And I think this ambition I would like to see as an ingredient for Europe in order to succeed in 35.
Thanks, Joseph. And so, Rodrigo, last ingredients of our receipt for the success in 2035.
Very good. So first, it's very easy to agree, certainly, and I fully agree with the competitiveness, talent, ambition mentioned before. I will add another one to the mix, which is the ability to adapt and evolve. And it's not the Darwin theories of the species, but I think also from the side of space, we need to have that ability to adapt and to evolve. What we know today are the uses and the needs of space that we see today. What will they be in 2035? Well, we can try to guess, we can try to predict, but if we would go back 15 years, would we really be able of predicting how far and in which way space is used today? No, we would not have been. And therefore, when we look forward, indeed, the need to adapt and evolve as we go is fundamental. Because when we will get there, the users will have certain needs, the mass users, the segment users, the governmental users, and from the space side, we will need to serve them. So we need to create a program, and we need to continue creating a program that can continue to evolve to answer the user needs. How do you do that? Well, there is no magic recipe. Certainly, a regular interaction with the users is very important. And the users, again, it was mentioned, maybe large companies, maybe small companies, maybe established players, maybe new entrants. But we need to establish this dialogue through user consultation platforms, through ways of listening the users, not understanding our world of space, but understanding what are the user needs in the different segments. And then to adapt to those needs and to provide the responses to them. So I think in the end, if we bring all the 4 elements together, we're going to be very successful.
Okay, good. So we have competitiveness, We want to be the number one in Europe, the human capital and the people, and so that's a message also for our young generation. Study in space, bring new, fresh ideas. We need new people. The ambition, so we need to want it, and also the capacity to adapt and evolve, of paramount importance in this changing context that Timo was explaining us before. So I think we have 4 elements to work around. But I would like to ask you a last question, because you are here also to inspire the work we will do in this Space Week. So what are your expectations out of this Space Week? What you would like our space family that is here well represented today, from the user to the big companies to the startups, what would you like them to focus on in these days? What's your expectation out of the Space Week? Who would like to take it first?
Well, I think each individual in the room have their own, she or he has his or her or his own, let's say, ambitions and objectives. Why you made an effort to come here, why you are spending time. You are really investing a lot being here and being part of the Space Week. So I think you all have your own ideas and objectives and targets, and I encourage cooperation, mingling, talking to each other, comparing notes in the spirit of we all will win if we pull us together. There is no room for jealousy or for kind of I don't tell about my ideas because somebody may steal my idea. No, it doesn't work like that. Of course, there are technological solutions which each of the company want to keep for themselves. But I think important is that you tell about these things to the people, to your friends, to your colleagues, to your relatives, because we need to make space better known. Rodrigo referred that also in the beginning. What the space can offer is enormous, and the potential is endless, and we don't know yet, any of us in the room, the potential. But I think the spirit of ambition, Joseph put it, ambition, ambitious approach, curiosity, and the risk-taking. In this spirit, stay here, go back home, and continue.
Thank you,
If
Timo.
you allow me, I go more in would like to follow in the line what Timo said, is that my expectation for Space Week is to give 2 steps in important deficit that we have. One is to improve the relation between space systems and final users. There is, many users, they just don't know what space can do for them, and there is a one-direction communication. But there is an important communication, is sometimes the engineers, we like to do things because they are cool, and we cannot do things because it is cool. We have to do things, we solve problems. Then it is a bidirection. The user has to tell to the space expert what do they need so that we can target our design to what they really need. Then I think that space could be successful if we improve this bidirectional communication. And on the other side, this has a public exposure. It is, journalists are here, and we in Europe are not communicating to the society what the space is doing for them as well as in other places are doing. And then we need to devote special effort to communicate to the society up to what point their life, the day-to-day, is dependent of space systems. And this type of events will help to communicate to the society how important it is for them, because it is the minister said that we contact with many satellites every day, but people, they don't really realize that would be another good aspect of this week.
Yeah, we like to say it's the hidden utility space, that we are using it, but we don't know often that we are using it.
I will be very coherent. I said ambition before, and that's exactly what I would hope that this week is bringing. I know actually quite a few in this group here, and I was very happy to shake hands with some of our friends and colleagues. But what I really would hope, and what I would wish this Space Week to achieve is when you discuss in meetings, when you present some results and discuss what are the next steps, but maybe even more in the restaurant tonight, the reception tonight or tomorrow night, when you mingle and have some informal time, think out of the box and be ambitious. And if you develop an application service for agriculture or for transport or for energy or for something using either Copernicus data or Galileo, combine it with telecommunications. Go beyond what you think you normally would expect to do. Be ambitious, try to push the borders, and try to do something that is more than what you thought of when you came here to Sevilla. And do it with your friends and partners, the ones you see here in this room and the ones you meet here. Because if you combine energy and combine talent and the skills, we can do so much more. So I really hope that this word ambition translates into your meetings and your coffee breaks and your dinner talks here in Sevilla.
And maybe some new business and some new ventures that will be born in the Space Week. Rodrigo.
When it comes to the Space Week, this is my third in this position, and I always say the same thing in the end because I think it is really important, and for me, it is really, it's about the meaning of the Space Week to a certain extent. We are here sometimes in space, and in the space world, we live a little bit in a bubble. And we have a certain tendency to isolate ourselves. What we do is complex, what we do is fascinating, but the risk is sometimes we tend to live a little bit in the bubble. For me, the Space Week is the event to burst the bubble. We have to break the bubble. We have to go beyond the bubble, we have to go to the users, we have to go to the outside, and we have to bring the users on board. Because this will be also the way of securing space on the long term. So for me, one motto for the week, burst the bubble.
Yeah, thanks for this, because we have here today many of our users. No? I was before running around our user consultation platform. I assisted to presentation of users that are very different from the ones we normally think about. There was a bank explaining how they use or they want to use a space for their decision making in investing. So please use this opportunity to liaise our space ecosystem with the users, and we look forward to see all the new adventures that will come out of the Space Week. So let me thank our speakers today. I think it was a great start of our Space Week, and we will be in contact together during the event. So thanks a lot for your contribution. Okay, so thanks, gentlemen. So we had on stage 4 gentlemen. I would like now to give the word to exceptional lady instead, Laia Romero. I call on stage. She's CEO of Lobelia Earth, and I like this term. She's a scientific entrepreneur, so that's very interesting, linking science with entrepreneurship. She will talk about Earth observation in the climate emergency to further inspire our audience in the Space Week. Laia, can we have you on stage?
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for this invitation. I'm very happy to be here. We work exclusively on climate action. We are Remote Sensing Sud based in Barcelona. The name of the company where I work is Lobelia. And I've been thinking a lot on how to do this presentation because I was asked to do something inspirational. And you are everyone in the remote sensing sector, like all the pieces, the entire value chain. So I tried to reflect a little bit on what I think is important to achieve our climate goals. I want to start by setting the scene. We know it is not looking great. We know Europe is the fastest warming continent on the planet. It is already 2.3 degrees above the reference levels that are the pre-industrial that used as baseline for the Paris Agreement. We experience increasing wildfires, drought, floods, heat waves, extreme heat. The glacier melt and the sea surface temperature rise is unprecedented. Unprecedented is a very common word in our field, unfortunately, and I hope that unprecedented becomes also a positive word of what we are aiming to do from now on. I would like to reflect very quickly on this graph, which is how do we meet our net zero targets? This is the different behaviors of different types of organizations in order to meet these targets. Some divest, which means they sell all the brown assets they have. The impact of that action on the entire system's ability to meet net zero is almost zero. The effort is also, it's very easy to sell brown assets. Unfortunately, it's very common. The free ride behavior, which is holding on to already greening assets, which is a bit more of an impact, a bit more of an effort, and a free ride. Then engaging. Engaging means committing as an organization to transforming your assets, to greening your assets. And this requires knowledge, data, new designs, a lot of support, a lot of courage, a lot of financial prospects. And this is where the Earth observation makes a very strong impact, because we can really support and encourage engagement of these organizations. And I will show you a few examples of what I see in my day-to-day of the work that we do in Lobelia, of how we work with these companies that are engaging and that are transforming their processes. These are 6 examples, and I hope it's not too long, of real impacts that I see in our work, or that I've seen this year in our work. Very recently, we unlocked a very large investment in the Iberian Peninsula on sustainable agriculture. Investors were scared because actual conditions are not very promising. We are in a very anomalous year as well, that we have not ended yet. But during the due diligence, by understanding the context, understanding the uncertainty, the prospects, the soil moisture, the drought, what is happening, the levels in the reservoirs, what are the extreme hazards, and until when are we expecting certain things to happen, by understanding the reality and the science behind it, this investment was unlocked. It was an almond, it was for almond crops, by the way. Another example, this is some work that we did with National Geographic and Pristine Seas to help describe the value of an ecosystem. When we have the value of an ecosystem, we can actually protect it. They use this data to present it to legislators, and they also use it to understand what is the actual perimeter of action that they need to fight for in terms of protecting, in this case, penguin species in Frente Valdés, in Argentina. They are the one organization that has created the most marine protected areas in the world, and they rely on this data heavily. Another one is with Earth observation, we quantify, and I'm sure many of you are already experts on many of these things. These are examples from the work that I know. We use Earth observation to quantify the impact of, for instance, an extreme precipitation weather event. Extreme precipitation is an indicator, but we do not know what it means in terms of what is flooded, how is my whatever I have on the ground affected. Earth observation measures impacts. So we can actually travel from climate models into the impact on the ground by validating, calibrating, assimilating Earth observation data. This is from the flood in Greece. Another one, and talking about impacts, we use this data in order to, or we don't use it, but our clients use it, in order to quantify vulnerabilities across the globe. This is very useful for reporting, which is very popular today, but it is also very useful for taking local action. So by looking at a global portfolio of thousands and thousands of assets, we recently did a more than 5,000 asset portfolio, we can identify vulnerabilities and clients can actually engage in applying local action. This is thanks to the Earth observation data. We have also influenced decisions on mobility patterns. The Earth observation people here sitting from the Sentinel, 5P in this case, to the Copernicus data, to the models. Cities like Madrid and Barcelona, but many more. Spain is very strong on the mission on climate neutral cities. In Europe, we have, I think, half of the cities are based in Spain. This is a very important service for them. By monitoring and explaining the citizens what is happening at the street level with our data, processes have changed. Schools have decided to change the routes, like in terms of mobility at a city level. In Barcelona, it's been very, very big, and it's present also in media. We add transparency to the valuation of natural capital. This is the most fancy title of my presentation, because it has transparency, it has valuation, it has natural capital. But it is indeed very important. We work with communities that set up their payment for ecosystem services in regeneration, in reforestation. We can monitor every tree with very high resolution data. We can monitor the water content, we can monitor the ecosystem health, the biodiversity loss or increase, and we help them monitor this year by year. They can communicate on this to their donors, and they can actually get paid by this money in a very transparent way, without bubbles. This is something that can change the voluntary carbon market, for instance, in the way that it can become a reality. And this reality is that we can not compensate all the emissions that we cause, but it's still a very valuable market. And as the last example, Earth observation enables full analysis of a lot of variables in a lot of ways that requires a very heavy infrastructure. The Marine Copernicus service is the first one that is going full serverless, quotaless, full direct access, at a lower cost, also in terms of power, with the new marine data store and many others, the climate Copernicus service, the land service, the Sentinels, a lot of other services are following this same path. And you will see, use these systems. This is also a revolution for scientists, and this is also Earth observation. So I think my point is taken. Earth observation is great. It helps us a lot, but it also puts us in a situation where we are facing very important challenges. And we're very happy to see the creation of the Spanish agency, the Spanish Space Agency today in this beautiful city. We're very happy because they will, as they are explaining, generate a bond between all the actors in the ecosystem. They will be inclusive, they will take into account small and large enterprise, small and large academia groups, small and large cities, gender. Talent is everywhere. And the words of our leaders were promising today, and I hope that they continue to act upon them. I want to finish with this figure that is very close to my heart. This is something that I know very well. It is human towers. In this type of systems, weight of the entire system relies on every one of these links. And this is what we need to do here. And we are the sector. We are the different parts of the value chain. Startups and SMEs, we need to make a step on the side and realize we cannot be promising the impossible. We need to be transparent, we need to be collaborative, we need to be open, we need to be responsible on the scientific knowledge. The same for space agencies. I need SMOS. I need drought information from space. I am very ambitious, but I need these satellites to be on orbit in order to use the data. This applies to everybody. Administration, public funding, how we distribute it and use it. I want to finish with this idea, and I hope that we can each take action and responsibility and understand our impact on the ecosystem, and that we make it happen together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laia, for your inspirational words. They touch a big part of our ecosystem. And now I would like to welcome on stage Dinka Dinkova, who will chair the last panel of tonight that will close the opening session of the EU Space Week 2023. And Dinka will have a talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and innovations. Dinka, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome again to this last session for the first day of Space Week. I'm extremely pleased and very excited to share a stage with 3 inspiring young space entrepreneurs with whom we will talk about their experience in starting and growing a successful space business, what it takes to be a successful space entrepreneur in Europe, what are some of the recipes for their success, how is the space environment changing, and what is their outlook for the next years ahead. We will be talking to, and I would like to invite now my speakers, my panelists. We will be talking to Luisa Buinhas. She's co-founder and chief officer, program officer at Vioma. Yeah, please sit down. Vioma is a German company that is providing solutions for space-safe operations and solutions for real-time mapping of space objects, but Luisa is going to tell us more about that in our conversation. Next to me, I have Raul Verdu, co-founder and chief business development officer of PLD Space, a micro-launcher company based out of the Andalusia region here in Spain. And PLD Space recently had their very successful suborbital flight, and Raul is going to share with us about that success and what it took to get there. And last but not least, I have Jakub Dziwisz, co-founder and CEO of a Polish company, Orbify, which uses satellite imagery with AI to provide artificial intelligence, continuing a little bit the theme of the previous session. So once again, it's a real pleasure to have you on stage. It's great to have you with us at Space Week this year. Very excited. I would like to start with a question, opening question to all of you. You represent this new wave of young European space enterprises. How do you see the European space landscape? Is something changing? And how are young companies like yours making a difference? And I would perhaps like to start with you, Luisa.
Sure. Yeah, so I think nowadays this space ecosystem that we see ourselves in is still traditionally dominated by heavier companies, but still probably less so than it was 10 years ago. So I do have the impression that things are slowly changing, the mentality is slowly changing, not just because there is a drive for ambition, but because I sense that there is more openness towards perhaps risk, perhaps towards innovation, and I would say perhaps also a little bit of competition from the US, where we see, you know, the commercial space market is very active. So I think competition is always a big driver for innovation. Nonetheless, I think young companies, they bring something which is, I would say, quite attractive to the space ecosystem. They are faster, they are dynamic. They bring solutions out of the box to existing problems, whether we are talking about AI, data processing, hardware even. And I think also they have shorter feedback loops and in terms of product development, and they don't need to face, you know, the big bureaucratic hurdles that perhaps bigger companies have to face. So I think this, you know, agile, flexing muscle of young companies, it's something of an added value. But as perhaps the previous speaker of the previous panel, so Mr. Timo Personen mentioned, I think there's space for everyone, and I think one way that you can see that you know these two worlds coexisting is, for example, through collaborations in institutional projects, and it is our very good experience at Fioma that we work with bigger companies. And it's a very good way of synergizing, let's say, the expertise of smaller companies and the resources of bigger ones. So we see this connection as very positive.
Thanks a lot, Luisa. Raul, what's your take at this? How do you see things changing?
Yes, so the question is quite difficult. So we saw, you know, we found a launcher company in 2011. Was the topic was not, let me say, like at that popularity that today we are, everybody, let me say, talking about new launchers. And we developed the company in Elche, it's a small city in Spain, and that's Europe. And we will start with our fundraising activity. There are so many investors asking why you not, let me say, flip the company to United States and or to Asia or to another regions. And we say, like, in Europe is, let me say, our opportunity. Of course, let me say, in the environment it's quite difficult. We have a lot of challenges, mainly, of course, and I want to talk about the launcher industry, that it's our business today. So in front of us, we have a big challenge, and we need to, let me say, to target, or what we see the challenge is to target the demand, because it's hard to understand, let me say, or it's hard to see which will be, let me say, the winner in the next 10 years. Of course, PLD space. So, but it will be hard, let me say, to set and to understand what the customers they are asking for in the launcher segment, and what the European player must, let me say, respond to that. So our visions today, it's like super clear. So I think we have, let me say, a problem, but we understand as an entrepreneurs, we understand a problem as an opportunity, you know, to do the things better. So thank you to our government to put a lot of pressure on us, like trying to, let me say, to solve the partially, let me say, the situations in terms of launcher. We are an SME, so our ambition is quite big. But today our company, it's small, but our ambition, again, it's super large. So how we can, let me say, add something, or how we can solve that, it's to do, let me say, to deliver what we promise. So it's super easy. So we promise so many things, and our brand is to deliver what we promise. So we say, like, and also to win that credibility, because it's super fun. When we start with nothing, just with a PowerPoint presentation, there are so many skeptics, like say, no, this is impossible to develop an engine. We develop an engine. Well, you develop the engine, but to develop the rocket is another history. We developed a rocket. Okay, you developed the rocket, but you never launch it. We launch it, and today during this day we are hearing, no, but you develop the suborbital mission, the orbital will be another, you know, I think we need to change that. We need to change that, let me say, risk, and to assume that we will do it. Because, not because what we are promising, but because what we delivered in the past. So I want to change that matter, and I think PLD space and also our colleagues, our competitors, and also colleagues trying to partially, let me solve the problem in launchers in Europe, let me say, trust in us. So, because we are capable to deliver the same excellence than the others. So, and this is what we try to demonstrate, of course, from the humility, because we are, again, a very small company and doing like small things and solving, let me say, partially the problem. I take the challenge from Joseph to develop something bigger in 2035, but we want to go like step by step, because our product assurance has the same level of importance than our product. So I'm happy to, you know, a lot of pressure on our side, but we take the challenge. We can deliver very big things.
So we see lots of energy, people here taking the challenge and really committed to succeed. If I go now to Jakub, you represent a downstream company. How do you see the space ecosystem from your perspective changing, and how are companies like Orbify making a difference in that?
Sure. First of all, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me here. I would say that in Earth observation, we are seeing similar trends as in the bigger space industry, right? So on the one hand, there are those bigger companies, established industry players that were there even before the dinosaurs, and now they are being challenged by more and more smaller companies. And this is definitely a good, positive trend. Orbify and many companies that are in the Earth observation are trying to challenge the status quo, trying to make Earth observation more useful to normal people. This is great. However, there is also another trend that is, I'm not sure if it's great, which is more and more companies are trying to go from one grant to another, one R&D funding to another R&D funding. And if they are developing some IP science, this is nice. But then if the goal is just to survive, if the goal is just to burn our money, right, taxpayers' money, then this is something that doesn't make me so happy. So those two trends, I would say.
Well, thanks a lot. Luisa, your company deals with safe space operations, okay? Space safety has become really critical. We see with these mega constellations, the number of satellites in space is really exploding, and this comes with great risks, however, for the long-term sustainability of the space environment, but also for the companies, for their own assets in space. How is a commercial player like your company, Bioma, adding value in this domain of space situational awareness? How do you see your place in this?
All right, I think we have witnessed a really big increase, an exponential increase in space traffic. But it's also true that at the same time, our ability to understand what's happening in orbit has not kept up at the same pace. Right now, we can really only track about 3% of objects that are larger than a paperclip from the ground, and even those 3% are quite unreliable. So the added value, and for us, of course, to be able to protect space assets, space infrastructure, we need to understand where these objects are, be it space debris, be it other satellites, and so on. So the added value that a company like ours brings really is on the data part, so on the space intelligence. We currently work with the observations of space objects from the ground, from a partner network of ground sensors. But next year we're going to launch our first pilot telescopes to do observations of space objects from space itself. And we think that this data gap, this knowledge gap that currently exists will capture a large part of the remaining 97% of the objects that we are too dark, too small, too faint, to be observed currently from the ground and really close this data gap and, really become a useful instrument for effective in space traffic management.
Well, thanks a lot. So you are finding a solution out of the box, if I take your words from the previous intervention.
Well, we have to say that the idea cannot be credited to us. It's an idea that has been around since the 80s. It's only the miniaturization of technology nowadays that does allow us to take this step and go forward with space-based observations. Yeah.
So from space traffic management, let's go to launchers. Raul, your company is in the launcher business. You already touched on that. It's a very complex and complicated business, technologically, financially. It's almost common narrative that micro-launchers are revolutionizing access to space by being less costly, more affordable, more agile, democratizing, in a way, access to space. How is PLD doing things differently, or not? Because we had a conversation before, and you challenged me on that. And how do you see the future of European access to space? It's been one of the main topics, also the attention of ministers yesterday and today. How do you see this evolving?
Yes. Okay, so, and I think I see, let me say, if I close the eyes and I open it like 10 years ahead, I think just our consolidation, there is, let me say, a hard competition today between PLD Space and other colleagues that they are trying to develop similar things. There is a huge market behind, but there is no market for everybody, so that's the competition. Competition sometimes is hard, so everybody loves to, let me say, to collaborate and things like that, but we need to compete, let me say, in Europe, and for me it's more important to compete outside Europe with the other regions like USA or Asia, like India. So there are very promising projects there also, and we need to maintain our sovereignty. And I'm fully agree, let me say, that new strategy to develop in a competitive landscape that player. Maybe it's not a good news for us, or maybe yes. In the future we will see. So, and as you mentioned, what we made different, it's to not, and let me say like this, so we are not doing hype in that sector, because to launch a satellite into orbit, it's a very serious task, and it's super easy to underestimate that. It's not because we are smarter, it's because we start to be older, like 12 years in that business, so we learn a lot, and it's easy to underestimate the task, let me say, or the effort, the challenge to develop an orbital class vehicle, and this is why we put in the middle that let me say, half step, that to split into the technological challenge. We learned so much with Mira 1. If we, let me say, in a parallel universe, we develop directly the orbital class vehicle, I'm sure that it will be fail a lot, because there are so many like small things that you can, and not just the technology, even to manage authorities and to win an insurance contract. So there are so many things behind that it's super complex. So our innovation is that we are innovating the rocket. So we are developing something like super simple and super robust. And we demonstrated that, that incredible success in Mira 1, it was a surprise also for us. So, because the unit that is exposed in the entrance of the event, it's our serial number 2. We manufacture that second unit, assuming that we fail, So risk assumption is one of the keys. So we assume the risk. We understand that to succeed in a maiden flight, it's, let me say, almost impossible, but thanks to our, let me say, engineering, design, processes, test campaign, qualification, so following, let me say, the rules. So we learn a lot from the legacy companies, and we are just doing things like in a competitive way in terms of cost, let me say, efficiency. So for me, the success of the Mira 1 launch was not, let me say, to follow the trajectory with an incredible, let me say, accuracy. It's to develop that using 30 million euros. That's our big
challenge.
milestone. Yes.
Well, yeah, it's really great. Huh? You innovate, but in the end of the day, you have to deliver something that is reliable and robust, while making it for 30 million.
It's a big effort, yes.
Well, Jakub, you are not making satellites. Your company is not making satellites or rockets. But I took one phrase from what you told me. You make space useful for normal people. And that's, I think, it's one of the challenging that we all as a space community are facing. Are non-space customers interested in using space from the experience that you have? And what, in your view, does it take to grow further this space data economy?
Well, this is a great question, Dinka. I would say that they don't really care whether this is space or whether this is in situ measurements, to use a fancy word, or whether this is like crystal ball. Our customers care about large-scale, accurate environmental intelligence, right? This is what we do. We transform satellite imagery into large-scale, precise environmental intelligence data that tell how much biomass is in a given area, what are the land cover changes going on, what's the climate situation, etc., etc. And then our customers, sometimes, yeah, they ask me, hey, are you using public data, are you using commercial data, but they don't really understand the specifics. Because this could be like nature-based solutions, right? So these are people planting trees, or people preventing trees from being cut, or these are people who are trying to save endangered species of animals, right? Or these are this or that, and these people don't really care where the data come from. The job to be done that they have is to simply get precise information. And I think that this is the biggest challenge that we have. I think that this is something that was already said in the previous panel, that we need to go outside of the bubble, space bubble, and we need to make space useful for everyone, because we are doing so many amazing things in space, right? And then we all know that many amazing technologies like polar aware, like microwaves, I suppose, this and that were built in space. But now, with this wave of technology, with new space, we have so many more amazing things that can be done on the ground. With Sentinels, we have so much amazing data that can save the planet, going back to the previous presentation, right? And if we want to make it happen, then we need to make it accessible for people that don't have PhDs in geophysics. And this is exactly what we do. We transform these amazing achievements into something that can be used by normal people.
Great, this is exactly what we need to get space out of space. It's easier said than done, but with your example and others like you, we can actually make this happen. Well, you represent startup companies, some of you older startups than others, but you can't grow your business without money, right? So let's talk a little bit about fundraising money in Europe. What has been your experience? Is it difficult to raise money in Europe? Do you see a change in the investors' mindset? How has been your experience in that? I don't know, Luisa, if you want.
Sure. Well, I think that with recent geopolitical tensions, I think the environment has become a little bit more shy, let's put it like this, in terms of taking risks in deep tech and so on. In our case, at Vioma specifically, we were lucky in the sense that we closed a funding round this year, which was of over 10 million euros, and that was quite a nice achievement. But I think with the recent geopolitical tensions, things have started to change. I would also say that the typical investor coming into the space domain is not the traditional, software as a service type of investor, right? This is a kind of investor that invests over the long term, that invests in companies that are solving problems, or in companies that are solving humanity problems, be it climate change, forestry, agriculture, and so on. So I think space is a bit of a special niche in terms of investment.
Okay, Raul, what's been your experience with investors?
No, it's always a difficult task to do fundraising, of course. But I'm happy to hear this, let me say, size of rounds here in Europe. I think you can close your round of investment if the project really worth it. So I am like super optimistic because we close in a super, let me say, bad environment. We raised up until today like 90 million euros. And that was also a very difficult task. So my president, he considered fundraising one of the subsystems of the rockets. Because without that subsystem, it's impossible, let me say, to get orbit and to start that business. So all the, let me say, financial objectives that we put in on the table, we succeed also. It was like super difficult task. It's hard to convince like private investors. But at the end of the day, if there is a business behind and you can deliver what you promise, let me say it's easy to convince the investor because the business is there. You know, it's not a risk opportunity. You know, it's an investment opportunity to earn money. One of the keys from our case is to receive, let me say, public support, but not like being the lead, let me say, of that of this kind of round. So mainly in the early days, I remember very well when we received our first, let me say, support from the national funds, was like 200K, so not that much money. But with these 200K, let me say, contract from a national organization, from an institutional organization, we multiply by 5 using private money. And we maintain that KPI in the past 10 years that we received, let me say, we won a €1 million contract from ESA. I go to the investor and I say, hey, I want that contract, so invest at PLD space. So the participation of the institutions are not that big today in our company, but that money enter first. So without that kind of warrant, let me say, or validation, it's super hard to go to the market with no, let me say, any customer. This is why we are, let me say, suggesting or promoting like contracts. So my colleague take before, so no grants. Grants is okay for R&D, let me say, to go to, I don't know, to Rosetta and to do like amazing things like super scientific programs are very, very important. But in the commercial part of the space industry, we need to compete to win contracts. If we win contract, we will have the money. And I want to say that it will be easy to, you know, because today, having demonstrated the technology, it's very important. If you have contracts, anchor customers, like ESA or our national government or outside Europe contract, because at the end of the day, we are selling our capability outside Europe also. We are planning to open a spaceport outside Europe. We want to have market share outside Europe also, and to bring richness to Europe. So if the project, there is a market behind and you have the technology, let me say that it's easy to close that round of investments.
So this triggering effect of public support, which has helped you in raising private funding.
Yes.
Jakub, in your case, was it the same, resonate the same ideas?
I would say that the situation is getting better with every year because the investors are less afraid of space. They are more accustomed, okay, there are some companies building some value. We, of course, lack spectacular exits, right? So when we have some European space unicorns, the situation will improve a lot. And I think that this is something that we are missing to convince investors, to convince LPs, limited partners, to start asking their VCs, hey, why don't you invest in space, right? So we need to show that this can be profitable. But all in all, this is becoming less of rocket science for investors and more of bread and butter. So with every year, the situation is getting better. Also, thanks to USPA, because they have a lot of programs for those small startups just starting. Oh, here you got 20,000, here you got 50,000, right? And this is insufficient to build a huge corporation, but this is great to spark someone's enthusiasm and to help startups, well, join the game. So I think that the situation in Europe right now is really good. Of course, you talked about macro, right? And yeah, the macro is right now unfavorable, but well, let's see. It needs to change. It will change.
There's an opportunity in every crisis, no? I'm not suggesting we are in a crisis, though. So you have, all three of you, have also been part of the Cassini Business Accelerator, and I wanted to ask you very quickly about how has this helped you in your journey? Yeah.
I just assumed so. Yeah, so I think, So Cassini was valuable in creating connections between new space companies, which is something which does not happen very often. I think young companies, whether you're talking about startups or scale-ups or SMEs, they have a stronger voice when they are together, I would say. So fostering these connections, creating these links, it's important. And I would also mention something which I mentioned to my Cassini colleagues maybe a few weeks ago, is that at the end of the day, the people who are participating in Cassini programs, they will be the CEOs and the executive officers of the big companies of tomorrow. So creating this community is very important.
So nurturing this community from bottom up. Raul, your experience?
Yes, no, we participate in, like 10 years of history, we participate in so many, let me say, programs like this. So I am very, let me say, thankful to that program, because you made one thing like super different that add a lot of value to the company. It's to permit the participation of all the levels of our organization. Because I am very accustomed to participate in that program, CEO, president, C-level, founders, blah, blah. And it's very valuable, you open network, you receive a lot of learns. But that program allows us to, let me say, to participate our commercial guy, our marketing guy, our chief engineer of one subsystem or things like that. And let me say that program, let me say, was propagated internally in our organization quite in deep. And I remember in our coffee corner, like talking about Cassini, like just our mid-management line and even team members. So I think that a lot of value to us just to put, let me say, the vision of a business. Because sometimes we forget that, we are fully, let me say, we are like, 140 engineers in the office, and sometimes we forget that we are developing a business. So when you can, let me say, enter, let me say, in the layers in the company, and you, let me say, be like super transparent, and you can, let me say, share this kind of knowledge that usually came to me and I explained to the team. So to go directly to the mid-management team and also the team members in this kind of accelerator program, for us was, let me say, a very successful history internally. So thank you very much for that program.
Well, thanks a lot for your words, and it's indeed, you are running businesses, you need as many engineers as you do business, and probably more business people, finance people. Jakub, in your case, how has it helped?
I definitely agree with everything that Luisa and Raul said. So by being a part of Cassini Business Accelerator, we made it to the very center of space Earth observation ecosystem in Europe, and this is super beneficial. But the other thing that was very important to us is connection to amazing mentors that we had through the Cassini Business Accelerator, ability to spend with these mentors multiple hours, and this is also something that I really appreciate, that it's not like one meeting with sales guru, but it's rather 10, 12 meetings, as many as we needed to evolve our sales processes, right? So this approach where we can continuously learn from great experts was amazing.
Thank you, and I hope this will help you in your journey. So my next question, in very few words, if you can tell us, what's the next big milestone for your companies? And how do you make sure that you keep on this growth trajectory?
Well, for us, it's going to be the launch of the pilot telescopes that will go into space at the end of next year for space domain awareness, so mapping the space environment, space objects, satellites, and debris.
And you, Mura?
Yes, successfully launched Mira 5 in 2025.
It's as simple as that.
Yes.
Yes. Committed. Jakub, and
yeah, well,
yours?
I'm a bit ashamed to say that our goal is simply 1 million in annual recurring revenue, right? We are, after all, B2B SaaS company that transforms amazing achievements from space into accessible insights. So this is purely business goal.
Thanks a lot, and I wish you every success in your vision for the future and next milestones. My last question would be, okay, this is a panel with inspiring young entrepreneurs. There are probably many other aspiring space startups, space entrepreneurs that are looking up to you. If you had to give them one insight about the recipe of your success, what would that boil to?
Well, if you want to become an entrepreneur, my first advice would be you have to learn how to spell entrepreneur, which always takes more effort than you think. But on a more serious note, I would say, I would mention something that probably does not get enough attention, and I would say communications, and specifically the importance of aligning your message to the audience that you're speaking to. And not everyone that you will find along the way, not even investors, will have a technical background. And if you want people to understand what you're saying, if you want people to care, the audience needs to understand the message that you're trying to convey. So they need to understand the problem that you're addressing. They need to understand the solution that you're bringing in. So for us, it was a very big learning curve trying to get the message right to specifically investors. And what I would say, for example, is simplify the language, create analogies that people can relate to. In our case, we sometimes refer to, satellites in orbit as, cars on the road without traffic lights. Just to give the people of a feeling of relatedness, especially if you come from a technical background. And so anomalies, so sticking to the big vision, don't get too caught up in the details, because I think that's a healthy way of conveying your message. At the end of the day, communications, it's probably the most powerful vehicle that you have to deliver your vision. So aligning the message with your audience would be my main takeaway for young entrepreneurs.
Thank you. I think communication was mentioned a few times in previous panels. We need to learn to do better communication in space, and I think that a lot of people can learn from what you have done. Raul, and for you, what is your secret recipe for success you can share?
Yes, again, I have bad news, so there are no secrets, so it's just to work a lot. I think if I want to inspire, because to inspire someone to develop a business, it's a very, let me say, has a deep responsibility behind, because to develop a business is something like super hard. You assume a lot of personal responsibilities. So you must be super honest with your value proposition. So you need to use an Occam knife to say hey, what I am proposing, it's real business or not. So if you pass and if you answer that question internally, not investor, just with your founder team, if you pass that question and your value proposition and you validate your value proposition, honestly, let's start working. So our values in the company, it's respect, to respect what the others are doing, respect what your customer, respect your team, hard work, excellence. So you must be excellent in every small thing that you are working. You must be excellent. Communication, marketing, our launcher technology, with your management, taking care of your team. And with that, let me say three, super, to be, respect everybody, hard work, and be excellent. So that's
so we have communication, honesty, hard work, respect. Jakub, what can you add to this?
Well, I think many things, but I think we don't have that much time. So many space tech, deep tech companies are being founded by technical founders, right? This is what attracts us to start these companies. I'm an engineer myself, and I think that Miguel from Spanish Space Agency said it very, very right, that engineers like to build fancy things. So to keep us honest, I would say, well, focus on your customers, focus on the value you're generating for your customers, descope the MVP, right? So not build the whole thing, but rather think really hard, what is the smallest possible thing that I can build and sell and learn from selling, because if they don't want to pay, they will not pay. if they don't want to pay. Maybe I'm not solving the right problem. Maybe this is not worth their money, right? So then I will have to leave from one grant to another, building my amazing opus magnum, but this is not real business. So descope your MVP, sell small thing, learn from it, and learn how to sell. Actually, learning how to sell was one of the biggest breakthroughs for me personally. So focus on the commercial side.
You should become the next Cassini mentor for the next batch.
So thanks a lot for your insights. I think this has been super interesting for many young people who are probably following in your footsteps and looking for inspiration from what you have done and what you have achieved. Well, unfortunately, this is about all the time we have for this panel. I'm sure we could have gone on with the conversation. I hope that you have enjoyed. I would like to thank Luisa, Raul, and Jakub for their fantastic insights. Yes.
Thank you, Dinka.
A big applause for the panelists. As you can see, and you probably felt in the energy of this group, new space in Europe is something very tangible. It's not fiction at all. It's something tangible. These are serious companies that are delivering robust products, just like any established companies, that have walked a long journey so far and have a bright future ahead. I wish you the best of luck for your next milestones. And if you thought that the past 5-10 years were exciting, just wait to see what's ahead in the next 5 or 10. Good luck to all of you, and thank you so much for being part of that panel.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I think this completes our panel. I would like to give back the floor to Irena for concluding day one of Space Week.
Thank you very much, Dinka. Thank you very much, the panelists. I use these opportunities to thank all the speakers that help us today to open the EU Space Week 2023. I thank to all of you who were here, to all of you who are following us online, and I want to remind, stay connected for next 2 days. Last but not least, thanks is going to our host, Spanish presidency, who is hosting at this beautiful city of Sevilla. And I have the pleasure to say to all of you who are here present, unfortunately not to you online, that we are all invited to the reception which is happening outside, hosted by the Spanish Space Agency. I wish you all a very nice evening and see you tomorrow.